Hello and welcome to the SciShow talk show, the day on SciShow where we talk to cool people about interesting things. Today we have Dr. Heiko Langner from the University of Montana, who is also the consultant that made sure that Crash Course Chemistry was correct most of the time. Thanks for doing that.
Yeah, thanks for calling me one of the cool people.
Yes, you are one of the cool people.
Oh, thanks.
So as a chemist, I used to be a chemist. I majored in chemistry. What's the stupidest thing you've ever done in the lab? This is an then we're going to talk about your research. But first, I want to know what's the dumbest thing you're just like, why did I do that?
Well, I don't know. The most kind of stupid thing that had long-term effects, I would say, is that I got some acid in my mouth by just pipetting.
See, that's
hydrochloric acid.
They say hydrofluoric.
Hydrochloric.
Oh God! It's like your head acid would be gone. So you pipetted HCl into your mouth.
Yeah,
and it had long-term effects.
Molar, 1 molar hydrochloric acid. You have it in your body. It's not that dangerous at low concentrations, but when it gets really acidic to molar 1 or molar 2, it tends to dissolve a lot of. Well, it likes to dissolve minerals.
Yes.
It likes to dissolve your teeth.
Yes, you have minerals in your mouth.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Everything heals when you get it on your, we don't really worry about hydrochloric acid so much. Mm-hmm. I would dip in and pull something out of, 1 or 2 molar acid and then wash it off. But the teeth you have only once, right?
Yeah. So kids, don't pipette by mouth. When they told us that, I was like, of course not. Why would you pipette by mouth? But here we are. Someone did that.
Mm-hmm. Well, a lot of it has to do with if you don't know what you're working with, you want to be like extra cautious. I know hydrochloric acid isn't that bad.
Yeah.
But even chemists get fooled sometimes.
So you are doing some really interesting research right now that I'm excited to talk about with you. Let's just start at mercury. What is it? Where does it come from?
The globally largest source is mercury that rains down on us, what we call atmospheric deposition. Mm-hmm. It's been generated, generated through the burning of fossil fuels. So everywhere there's a coal-fired power plant, especially in coal, there's a lot of mercury.
Yeah, well, in Montana, I know this, we have lots of mining. And so I would imagine gold mining in particular is a big source of mercury. Is that stuff that's already in the soil, or is it used as part of the processing of the gold?
Yeah, the second source of mercury that we are concerned with, especially in our area, is from precious metal mining. Mm-hmm. I also thought, it's just the gold mining, it's the silver mining as well. So it turns out that in terms of like mercury in the Clark Fork,
which is a river we have here.
Yeah.
It's an important river that goes through the middle of our town.
And it happens to be the largest Superfund area in the United States.
Yes, Superfund being basically a legislative designation for cleanup of very dirty areas.
Yeah, nicely said. So let's see, the Superfund designation actually comes from other contaminants. Mercury had been ignored for the longest time. And but it turns out that there's really one reason why we can't eat a lot of fish from the Clark Fork River or from the rivers around here. It's the mercury, and we always thought it was mainly from the gold mining, mm-hmm. And it turns out that it's actually from silver mining. That used to be one of the large silver producing areas in the United States. And they used mercury to extract the silver particles from the ore. Gold and silver and mercury really like each other. Mm-hmm. We call this process amalgamation.
Right.
So when you have some mercury sitting in some, in some pot and mix it with ground up rock that contains silver, the silver will go into the mercury, and the rock will, because its density is lighter than, or its density is lower than the density of the mercury, it will just float off. And later on, you can just collect that mercury and heat it up, and it evaporates pretty quickly. It will vaporize, and you are left with the gold or the silver. So that's in the oldest, most primitive case, I want to say, is that the old miners used to just pan their gold, had some little bit of mercury in their pans, and at night over the fire they would just sit and burn off the mercury and breathe all that stuff and get really mad.
Yeah.
That's what you get when you breathe a lot of mercury. The Mad Hatters.
Yeah.
The Mad Hatter's disease was subscribed
with your
to
nervous system and
exactly. Yeah. So anyway, long story short, most of the mercury that we see here comes from mining sources.
So it's important to know how much mercury there is in the river, where it's coming from, obviously, and also what effect it's going to have on the ecosystem.
Yeah. Basically, the ultimate goal is to clean it up, to find the sources, and we actually found some, through that research we did, found some important sources that actually can be cleaned up pretty easily.
So tell me about the research. How did you actually figure out where it is?
And that's another coincidence. The reason why we sit here and talk about mercury is really just due to a coincidence.
Right. Yeah.
We looked, well, I'm a chemist, right? And I'm not a biologist. So one day, a person from a local nonprofit who works with raptors came by my office and asked about mercury and heavy metals, and because he's working with eagles and he's working with ospreys, he was working with other raptors, and got all these questions about how high is the mercury there, how high are heavy metals in those birds, and since I kind of like birding, I said, Rob, this is really interesting. We maybe should look at that in a kind of scientific, systematic way. Well, as a geochemist, what I had worked with was a lot of contaminants in the rivers, in the Clark Fork River, in Yellowstone Park for that matter. And we know a lot about the concentrations of contaminants in sediments, in water, but are we really interested in that?
Right.
What we are interested in is the effects on us, the effects in the ecosystem. We just use these concentrations in rivers as a tool to get there. So to really address that question, how bad is the stuff? We have to test either ourselves, or we have to test our ecosystem, something else.
Something preferably eating out of the river.
Exactly, yeah. And we had this idea, hey, Rob had all the permits to sample ospreys. We basically were looking for a top predator in the system, for something that lives at the top of the food chain. And here we go, ospreys are a great example of that. They eat exclusively fish, and the chicks that grow on these nests, all they have eaten throughout their lives were fish that had been caught within like 1 or 2 miles of the nests. So their nests are, like beads on a chain along the contaminated river.
Yeah, it's like a perfect sampling setup.
Exactly, and even their nests are really easily accessible, because these days most of the ospreys have their nests on platforms that are man-made, and
there's like
anything that's man-made is accessible, right?
Yeah.
So
and the chicks don't fly away when you get up there.
Exactly. So here was a project that was born, and it turned out to become a real big project. These days we get our funding from the Natural Resource Damage Program. That's basically the entity that oversees the cleanup in this contaminated river in the Clark Fork Basin. Every year we look at about 20 to 30 nests along the Clark Fork River. And after the first year of sampling, I have to say we were really surprised by the results. So it turned out that all the contaminants we were really looking for was copper, arsenic, zinc, cadmium, lead. We did not find in the ospreys. So now this is all pretty clear to us why, but that was puzzling. What we found was a lot of mercury and a lot of selenium. So long story short, our heavy metal project that was really supposed to be devoted to the what we call priority contaminants became a mercury project. And yeah, it's really logical, or really, well, thinking about it, it makes a lot of sense, because those other contaminants, they are bad for the fish. They are bad for, for humans, arsenic is, but they don't bioaccumulate. They don't biomagnify in the food chain. So actually, the link, the fish between the environment and the dead environment and the ospreys, the fish and these other organisms, they actually cope with these other contaminants like copper and arsenic, and they don't get transferred to the ospreys. But mercury, certain forms of mercury get really bioaccumulated or biomagnified.
And the process of bioaccumulation then is, in the environment, it's fairly evenly distributed. But then when something eats, a plant draws it up, something eats the plant, and then, to become an organism, you have to eat a lot of plants. So you're eating a lot of that mercury. The mercury all stays around, you don't excrete it, and then the next thing comes along, and a fish has to eat a lot of, fly larvae or whatever it is, in order to become the fish. So they're accumulating more and more mercury. So each step of the way, it's like an exponential increase in the amount of mercury in the organism.
Exactly. Yeah. So we sometimes assume about a factor of 10. So if there's if there are big fish that eat small fish, they have to eat about 10 times more than they actually weigh. So if you have a compound that doesn't get excreted by the big fish, all of a sudden we get 10 times more in the next, in those big fish.
And then by the time it gets to the level of the osprey or the human, you're talking about a dangerous level of contamination.
Exactly, and that's the reason why a lot of mercury is linked to aquatic organisms. That's the only reason for that is, or the main reason for that is that the food chains in the aquatic ecosystems are so long. The small thing gets eaten by the bigger and the bigger and the bigger. Not so out in the meadow where the cow eats the grass, which is an extremely short food chain. And we eat that cow, which basically doesn't have much mercury accumulated.
Right. Fascinating. So have you been able to find, you've been able to find sources of mercury already with this?
The mercury came from these gold mines, not from the big copper mines around Butte.
Right.
And so there are hundreds and hundreds of gold mines in the upper Clark Fork, but it seems to not just take a gold mine, but also a place where the mining waste really can enter the river. So that seems to be the case in the Flint Creek area. There were these big silver mills that used a lot of mercury and probably spilled a lot of mercury. So there's, and I know that for a fact, there's some silver reservoir, some mercury reservoirs in the ground there that where people just get rid of it, and that interacts with the river. And there's Fred Burr Creek in the Flint Creek area where it looks like 80% of all our mercury that ends up here, that actually ends up in the Columbia River, comes from. So having said that, we found that out.
Yeah.
it's very exciting because, well, if there's a source, you can easily clean it up. It's just, you know, a few point sources that we could fairly cheaply clean up and, you know, help not just those people over there, but maybe 10,000 of people along, you know, the river, and not just people, but
the whole ecosystem. Wow, that's fantastic. That's really cool stuff. Well, thank you for sharing. We're gonna, I think, get to hang out with a real live bird. It's not gonna be an osprey. I'm pretty sure it's not gonna be a bird of prey at all. But Jessi from Animal Wonders is shortly going to appear where you're sitting with a treat for us.
All right, that'll be exciting.
What on earth?
This is Zapper. Zapper is, he's gonna talk the whole time, just so you know. Yeah, you are, huh? He's an Alexandrian parakeet.
Okay. What's the difference between a parakeet and a parrot? Because I would have guessed that was a parrot.
I know, because he's really big. He's the largest parakeet, and a parakeet is a large parrot. A parakeet is a parrot with a long tail, a small parrot with a long tail. But then a true parrot is going to have a short, blunter tail with a bigger body mass.
That is a big tail.
Yeah, he might not appreciate it if you touch it.
Okay, I won't touch it. Well, I wouldn't if there was something that just hanging out of my butt with just one connection.
Most animals are pretty particular about their tails.
Yeah.
They like to protect them.
Yeah. It's a point of vulnerability for sure.
What's going on? Would you like a treat? Yeah?
I have those.
Hank has one for you. Here,
This-
scooch down on my hand.
Do
You know what that is?
No.
That's an almond
Okay.
with a shell on it.
It's a shelled almond. We don't have to crack this.
Just give it to him.
Okay. Wow, I like that. This is not. Yeah, I like that. Are you serious? You're really gonna?
Watch him.
I would not want to be bit by this thing.
No.
Wow.
So he has ZYGODACTYLOUS feet, which means 2 toes in the front and 2 toes in the back. Short little toes in the back. And then he has this amazing, he's a hookbill, so he has this amazing, just perfectly shaped beak that cetaceans have that allow them to get into hard foods that other animals wouldn't be able to consume. So, you know, we could,
You're gonna get there.
I know, it's hard work.
So he has he's just using the tips of his beak.
Yeah.
Don't they get dull?
Well, they're going to constantly be rubbing them against things to clean them off, but they also sharpen them out, and they're ever growing. So they just keep growing. So he's the largest parakeet in the world. He is one of the oldest cetaceans, which means parrot-type bird. So actually, the Romans were the first ones to take these guys from the wild and breed them in captivity. He's named after Alexander the Great, Alexandrian Parakeet, and their scientific name means of noble lineage. Of noble lineage. So Alexander the Great, he bred these, and then he would send them to his favorite people to try and appease them or make them feel special. And so yeah, so these guys were pretty well distributed there. They're from India, Afghanistan, Sri Lanka, Laos, all those places over there. They're actually highly regarded over there, and they put them on currency. There's a big picture of them on their money there. It's illegal in India, it's illegal to buy, sell, or kill an Alexandrian parakeet. And you can get heavily fined and up to 5 years in prison if you do.
Has this bird ever bitten you?
He has not bitten me. He's bitten one of my interns. Sorry, interns. He came to us about, how long ago? 8 months ago, I think. Yeah, 8 or 9 months ago.
So you haven't had too much chance to get bitten. There's still, the chance is still there.
I have many years to possibly be bitten by him. He shows that he's a kind of a passive aggressive. So he's not going to launch towards you and like actively try and nail you with his beak. If he doesn't want to step up or doesn't like you, he's gonna move away passively. And then if you keep bugging him, then he'll be like, hey, stop it, knock it off. My intern was cleaning the enclosure. He was having enough. No, he's like, you're done.
Out of my space.
Yeah. But if you'd like, do you want to see if he'll step up on you?
Sure.
Okay. Would you like to step onto another finger? There it is.
Oh my gosh, you are not as light as I thought you would be.
Pretty heavy, and then a really strong grip.
Okay.
Can you feel that? You can feel it too.
Does he fly?
He does not fly. No, he's never tried to fly. We keep his wings clipped just in case he were spooked. He wouldn't, try and fly out a window and really damage his head and neck. Yep. What do you think?
But you've never. I mean, they do fly, but this.
They do fly. Yes, they do fly. They'll fly, miles in a day from tree to tree looking for food. You can tell he's a male because of that ring there, and they are sexually dimorphic. A lot of cetaceans are not. They look the same, males and females, but the females are not going to have that black ring. They're going to have more of this muted pastel blues and pinks there. He's most definitely a boy. Buddy. Would you like to hold him?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think if I tried to eat this almond, my teeth would fall out of my head.
I think you can crack an almond.
With my teeth?
Yeah, try really hard.
Well, Heiko's got.
Oh, this is already open. This would be cheating.
Give Hank the one so he can cheat. He's so smaller. Come on, you can do it. You can give him another treat.
Okay, here we go. Actually, I should have made him work for it. Done, huh?
Yeah.
That's weird. Seems like you know what you're talking about.
I do. We have a parakeet.
Oh, you do? Yeah. A little bit bigger than what? Just a budgerigar.
Yeah.
A budgie. Yeah. Not a true parakeet.
No, not even a parakeet.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
It's all lies. What are they?
I know, we're so confused. It's a budgie.
It's its own thing.
It's its own thing, yeah. Comes from Australia. These guys are from India. And yeah, you are, huh?
Old world.
Huh. So would you feed him that? It's a good question. Would you feed him that one that you've chewed on? Don't do it. It's a question.
I would have.
You would have. Most people would have. And
But I shouldn't.
You shouldn't. Actually, there's saliva in our mouth that can be very toxic to these guys.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Bacteria in there. Yep.
My goodness.
It's not going to be like acidic or anything. It's bacteria that can make them ill.
And here I was thinking
Our
we were
budgie
gonna.
eats out of my mouth all the time.
It's not good.
I thought we were gonna get a little intimate, but I guess not.
Good job, Zapper.
Well, thank you, Zapper, for coming along, nodding your head a lot, showing me the ways of almond eating. Heiko, fascinating research, really cool to hear what you've been up to, and thanks for all your help in all of our projects, both of you.
All right, thanks.
Jessi is linked to her YouTube channel in the description, and Heiko doesn't have a YouTube channel.
You should
Come
get
on,
one.
man. Thank you for watching this episode of SciShow Talk Show. If you want to keep getting smarter with us, you can go to youtube.com/SciShow and subscribe.